New Year's Eve 1832, and Elizabeth Rayner leaves her family get-together saying that she has to go and see a neighbour who's been unwell. Elizabeth has her own secrets to keep. However, she is not seen alive again. Hey everybody, Matt and Tom back with you. Hope you're okay. Today's story goes back nearly 200 years. We're going back to 1832 and we're currently walking kind of in the Brighouse area, and we're going to be heading to Clifton, specifically Clifton Woods. On New Year's Eve 1832, the Rayner family were kind of celebrating the new year. And Elizabeth Rayner was a 20-year-old who suddenly announced that she had to leave to go and check in on a neighbour who hadn't been very well, and she left the family get-together. Sadly, it was the last time she was seen alive. So behind me is Well Lane. This is where Elizabeth and her family lived. As you can see, it's currently under construction with new houses, so we won't go down it today. It's obviously very different today as it was 200 years ago, but yeah, that was Well Lane. Okay, so this is Clifton Woods, the very top end of Clifton Woods, and this is where the body of Elizabeth Rayner was found. Now, on the night of New Year's Eve, Well Lane, where she lived, is literally just there. And in the peace of the night, one of her brothers heard what sounded like he claimed it was like a rabbit squealing in the night, like it had been caught. And the suggestion afterwards was that maybe it was Elizabeth, but she was literally found here on New Year's Day, so the very next day. Sadly, by her brothers themselves found her here, which must have been pretty awful for them. They were younger brothers as well. Yeah, we are in the location. Wow. This gateway is the entrance to Clifton Woods. It's just here. A lot of the wall is gone. This remains. It's quite a dramatic kind of entranceway into the woodland. We need to be careful because some of this woodland is actually now used for paintballing. Well, I doubt that's on today. But we'll have a look round. We may have to come back this way. But our story is not yet over. So an inquest was held at the Black Horse Inn in Clifton, and it was announced that Elizabeth had passed away from a 3-inch cut from a blade on her neck. And it was also decided that whoever had attacked her was likely to be left-handed. And they called this person, the murderer, the left-handed butcher, whoever it was. And sadly, it was also announced to a shocked family that Elizabeth was also a few months pregnant. She'd never announced that she was pregnant. She'd never even announced that she kind of had a man in her life. Even though at 20 people, lots of people were having children back then, to suddenly find that as well, it was quite a shock. And because she wasn't married, you can imagine we're in the 1830s. People then started talking around the village. That talk, of course, was there a killer in their village? Did Elizabeth leave to actually go and visit a neighbour, or was she meeting her potential lover? And was that the person who'd killed her? The owner of the area was Sir George Armitage of Kirklees Hall, and obviously he wanted to get to the bottom of who had committed the murder on his land. He and the villagers of Clifton managed to get together £100 as a reward for information. 200 years on, and the killer remains a mystery. Even though the people of Clifton raised £100 to try and wrangle information out to find out who'd killed Elizabeth, George Armitage had gone to the king to raise funds to try again to find out who had committed this crime. It was never solved, and now, 200 years on, is most likely it never will be. So as the years passed, parents would say to children as they walked past Coal Pit Lane, "These woods, don't play in them, a murder happened here." And that story eventually changed over decades to something a little bit different, because if you remember, I talked about the brothers hearing that strange screaming noise from the woods that night. That noise reoccurred often at night. People heard it from Clifton, and they said that it was likely to be the spirit of Elizabeth still haunting the woods here. That then caused, more reason to not come into these woods. Yeah, all you can hear now is the distant motorway, but it's a funny woodland. It's not just we're surrounded by what looks like an abandoned paintball place as well, but
it feels like menacing in this sort of dappled sun.
No, I can imagine it feels different in different weather. But yeah, so does the ghost of Elizabeth Rayner still haunt Clifton Woods? Okay, so now we are at the St. Peter's graveyard in Hartshead, a couple of miles away from Clifton. This is quite an old church. I think it's a 12th century church, something like that. But in this graveyard here is this remains of a tree. There is some folklore attached to this tree, and we've covered stories before of Robin Hood, the Robin Hood folklore story from around here, including not far from here is Robin Hood's grave, and you can find that video here. But what this tree is supposed to be is they cut the wood from the tree for Robin Hood to make his arrows whilst he was recovering in Kirklees Priory, but in actual fact he was being bled to death, and these were the last arrows of Robin Hood come from this tree. So it's interesting the tree is still here. Now Elizabeth is said to be buried in this graveyard as well. I don't know if she actually has a grave and it's probably quite difficult to read some of them, although it is a very well kept graveyard. If we can't, then at least we are in the place where she was buried. But we'll have a look round and see what's here. There's certainly some very old graves here. Look at the patterns on them. I'm not even sure I can make out a year. Oh, 1787, so these are much further back in time. Okay, so I've just done a quick look online, see if I could find anything, and yeah, Elizabeth doesn't have a gravestone. None of her family have a gravestone, and this is where she is. She is somewhere in here. So, yeah, it's a lovely, you know, you can tell the age of it. The graves are all a bit rickety, but it's well looked after. Elizabeth's brother, John, the one who found Elizabeth in Clifton Woods, once announced that he had been visited by a spectral figure. And 5 descendants of the family also announced that they had been visited by the same kind of ghostly figure. Could this have been Elizabeth trying to tell them the answer that had haunted them for decades? Okay, so although there is no gravestone here, this seems like the appropriate place to bring our story of Elizabeth Rayner to an end today. She is at rest here in the beautiful Hart's Head graveyard. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this one. An unsolved murder story, a bit of a ghost story, and a little graveyard, a nice graveyard to finish off. Rest in peace, Elizabeth. I'm sorry things happened, and I'm sorry that your killer was never brought to justice. Take care, everybody. See you very soon for the next video. Bye for now.